We look at ourselves as the bridge between the traditional financial and the crypto world. So that's why we want to be the bank and issue stablecoin bank accounts directly out of your stablecoin. We all know about the breadth and scale of NWC, 100,000 attendees globally with phenomenal success. But I think it's the content and the engagement, the energy, which is vibrant, rebellious. But I think it's a melting pot of corporates, telecom, startups, especially this 4 years from now, where you have investors, startups, corporate, cutting-edge technology providers all under the same roof. That's phenomenal. We love it here.
All right, we're wrapping up shop here at MWC 2025. It's been a super productive conference. We networked with a ton of mobile network operators, and the booth generated a ton of interest. So that's it for now. We'll see you at the next conference.
Hey everybody, my name is Grant Key. I'm the lead protocol engineer for Telcoin Network. I'll show you our digital cash demo. We've deployed several digital cash options on testnet. This is a Diri testnet. We have selected our EMXN peso, and you can see from a list of options, we've got a wallet with several balances, but today we're going to swap for Canadian dollars. Set an amount, we'll do 2,000, and we can see the price impact. The minimum amount received. We set our parameters for the swap, and now we're ready to sign. For the demo on desktop, we're using MetaMask. It's an open source EVM wallet. Telcoin Network is fully compatible with all the EVM products on the market. And once we've signed our transaction, it's now with the network. The nodes are reaching consensus, they're validating it. They're exchanging that information to make sure it's a legitimate transaction. And once that's reached on testnet, about 5 seconds, we should be able to see the information in the block explorer. So here we can see our status was successful. The block that the transaction was included in, 100,593. And we signed our transaction just 22 seconds ago. The power of Telcoin network with the instant finality, every time a block is produced, the settlement is cleared, that transaction is permanent. And for very low transaction fees and very fast block times. Here you can have a look at our block explorer where we see blocks being produced in real time. This has a lot of information for us, including the token price, the latest block number, and the most recent transactions on the network. And there you have it. It's as easy as that. Users can swap stable tokens now on our Telcoin wallet found on iOS and Android. There you have it. It's as easy as that. Users can swap stable tokens now on our Telcoin wallet found on iOS and Android. There you have it. It's as easy as that.
Hi, BZ.
Hey Ty, what's going on? Can you hear me?
Good man. Yeah, just doing a sound check myself. Thanks. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm
not. I'll go live when we get a little closer. I'm gonna. Who all am I pinning at the top again?
Cool. Yeah, I did seemingly on a Tuesday evening or a Wednesday evening in New Zealand just before I go to sleep. My machine usually updates, and that sometimes throws off audio and video settings.
Yeah.
But it's all good here.
Evening, guys.
How's it going, Tim?
Hi, Tim.
I'll be muted for a second while I switch things over to the mainstream. We're not live yet, but I'll do so in a second.
Cool.
You're
What
back.
time is it there in the UK?
8 o'clock in the evening, mate.
8 o'clock, right, cool.
Still in the office. We're not doing video, are we?
I tend not to.
I'm off. Okay, how are you, Ty?
Oh, good, thanks, yeah. Just having my coffee and a amaretti biscuit. So,
So it sounds like breakfast.
no, just crunchy coffee biscuit.
Excellent.
Hi, Andrew. You're on mute, Andrew, if you can hear me.
Hey everybody, my name's Grant Key. I'm the lead protocol engineer for
Oh,
Telcoin Network.
Andrew.
I'll show you our
I've
digital
known
cash
you for
demo.
people.
We've deployed several digital cash options on testnet. This is a Diri testnet.
There's Mike. Hi, Mike.
We have selected our EMXN peso,
Mike, you're on mute.
and
Yep.
you can
Hey,
see
hey,
from
how you
a
doing?
list of options, we've got a
Good,
wallet
Jay.
with several balances.
Good.
But today we're going to swap for
we just
Canadian dollars.
Who pops up here?
Set an amount. We'll do 2,000.
I don't know what the
We can see
protocol
the
is
price
for
impact.
the
The minimum amount received.
Google
We
Beats.
set our parameters for the swap, and now we're ready to sign.
Let's see here.
Well, I'm on my phone, so I can't see a complete list of everyone.
I don't really use Google Meets apart from these sessions, so the UI is a bit unfamiliar for me. So I'm still kind of getting used to it.
Yeah, there'll be a little growing pains for sure. Thanks for. It went pretty well last week, so any feedback after this you guys have, just let me know. We'll go from there.
So good. Hi, Andrew.
I am picking up some background.
Yeah, it's
No,
Andrew's.
some
It's
here.
Andrew's mic. It looks like. Yeah, he just muted. So I'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm just driving. You guys can hear me okay though,
Yep.
obviously?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll mute when I'm not talking.
don't crash.
All right, we are live on all the platforms right now, so I'll let you guys get to it.
Okay. Well, I'm doing the moderating this week, or whatever you might call it. But I'll just go through the forward real quick, and then we can get started. So welcome to the July 9th recording of the TELx council meeting. These recurring meetings provide several critical functions to our governance, provide transparency to our community, create structure for our forum, provide authors the ability to present their proposals to the council and community, allows the council and community to review, debate, and refine these proposals so they can get to a place where we have consensus and mutual understanding. Provide a medium for regular TELx ecosystem updates, ensure consistent communication between council members and the community, allows the community to directly engage in Q&A with the council members. The TELx Council is a local governance organization with authority over and duties towards TELx operational rules, system health, and social well-being. Overview: accepts, develops, and votes on TELx IPs to change or introduce new elements to TELx, to alter TELx harvesting rules, and is responsible for generally representing the interests of and informing their constituency in matters pertaining to TELx duties. TELx Council is required to 1, plan, finance, and coordinate implementation of the improvements to the TELx system, 2, regulate the flow of TEL issuance throughout TELx to be harvested by liquidity miners, and 3, introduces, alters, and enforces TELx operational rules, including harvesting, information and communication, maintenance and construction. 4, informs miners of the activities and outcomes related to TELx and results from any snapshot votes. These snapshot votes are a requirement for all council members, and in order for a proposal to move forward, there needs to be 5 of 6 majority vote, and all 6 members voting within 5 days from the start of it being posted to Snapshot. With that, we will do the recap of the last meeting, and we'll welcome Tim to the stage to just give us a quick recap. I see Paul has joined us. Welcome, Paul. And Tim has joined us as well. And so if we could just do a quick recap. Looks like Paul is on mute there.
No, because we're in the same room together. Hi, everyone.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
We're gonna deal with
welcome,
feedback.
Paul. Welcome, Tim.
All right, welcome everyone.
Here.
Okay, so last time out, we were talking about the TELx v4 pools and the hooks with the audit update and finding out when we're actually going to be officially launching. So hopefully we can get some feedback there from Amir and maybe Khalil. We've got Khalil joined in the chat groups and things now, which is going to make easier communication. We also spoke about the TELx website and updating that. It's kind of part and parcel, and TELx analytics. And then separately talking about some education, some user-friendly education that we might be able to develop both on the website for TELx in written form, and maybe producing some how-to videos with the help of maybe some marketing people like Storm and some superstars that we've got in-house. And yeah, basically looking for start dates for new pools going forward. And the last point was, will Mr. Neuner be joining us? And very happy to say he is. Welcome, Paul. So that's me. Over back to Mike now.
With that, I'll introduce a man who probably needs no introduction to this group, but Paul Neuner is the CEO of Telcoin and visionary behind the project, and also sort of helping to guide and hopefully steer the TELx council so that we can be aligned on the vision of digital cash, cross-border remits and payments, and how the TELx council can assist and accommodate and plan for EXYZ and the growth strategies surrounding that over the next 6 to 12 months. And so, Paul, I just want to, if you just wouldn't mind giving us just a little bit of your background, and then just kind of what your sort of thoughts are on how we can be supportive of the digital cash strategy moving forward, Obviously, I think you know where we're at right now. We've approved the USDC, EMXN, Uniswap pool, which we hope to go live with by the beginning of August. And that would be sort of the first implementation of digital cash via TELx. And then what you see kind of going forward from there and how we can, of course, be of support.
Sure. No, I'm happy to finally join. And no, I think I'm in many ways been along for the ride in a lot of this. So really appreciate everybody's interest in participating in the decentralized governance. I don't think anyone really had any idea how this was going to unfold, but it's been pretty exciting. I think it'll be a lot more exciting here once we get the bank launched and also Telcoin network, obviously. So yeah, so I think just taking a step back, I think it is important. My whole background is obviously in telecom. I'm dealing with the GSMA since mainly fraud and security group since 20 years ago, and really saw in a lot of areas like roaming and interconnect how commercial companies can step in and cooperate and participate in GSMA and effectively define the standards. So all of the ways that telecoms clear on a monthly basis or on a real-time basis what they owe to each other for roaming, interconnect, and whatnot, messaging and voice and data, all of that was defined by commercial companies just decided to start participating and cooperating with GSMA, and they defined the standards, right? So, we've participated in the stablecoin white paper. We've been participating with all, the conferences and whatnot. But I think when we really do actually get the network out there, and we'll have racks in at least 50 mobile networks, around the world, running Telco network, but also a TEL version of base Avalanche and a bunch of other chains alongside it by the end of this year. So that's when I think it gets really exciting. The other side of this is that stablecoins are crazy, right? Everyone is really going crazy about it. We've been talking about them for a while, but telecoms in particular are trying to figure out how they can get into it. And so, the reason why I think everyone understands why we want to incentivize this pool, but just to make sure people get it, we've put our EXYZ stables out there. None of them really make sense. That's a foundational block that doesn't make a whole lot of sense until you turn on a rail in that country. We're about to do that with Mexico. So we've got our banking partner fully onboarded. We fully onboarded with a Mexican banking partner just this week. And so we're able to turn that EMXN rail on in Mexico. And just so people understand, from the company's perspective, at least, not the association, the wallet is really migrating to more of a stablecoin banking app. And the goal is to, in our first milestone that we're really shooting towards by, say, early next year, is in 5 markets, US, EU, Mexico, India, and Kenya, to be issuing local bank account numbers directly tied to the EXYZ stablecoin. And so that's really creating, I guess you could think of it like a stablecoin version of Revolut is sort of where we're trying to go. From the perspective of the telecoms that we're talking to, all of them are interested in one, definitely doing some sort of stablecoin version of whatever mobile money platform they already have, and they want help with that. But the other thing that they are all interested, as soon as we explain it to them, at least, is if they're going to get into blockchain, they really should support chains that only telecoms can earn a fee off of, right? So that's really what we've been pushing with the Telco network, and that's not only for Telco network, but the fact that working with some of these other chains, we'll have a TEL version of these other chains that will facilitate real-time zero finality access to the mainnet liquidity on all these other chains. And so what that all means, I mean, the EMXN USDC pool is really just that first rail. And one of the things that we don't talk about publicly, but it's an elephant in the room, is that what we have as the way our wallet works is actually an assisted self-custody wallet, right? We hold one of the keys, and legally in the majority of countries, that's not technically requiring a crypto exchange license even, right? We've embraced that though, because we want to be able to have proper rails, unlike say a MetaMask, who really is like fine to leave that up to third parties. But what that means is that, technically, like if you look at all the money transmitter laws in the United States, almost half of them, well, I would say all of them require you to take full custody of an asset to be considered money transmission, which is great for us because we can argue that we're not transmitting money then if we're only holding one key, right? That's an assisted self-custody setup, which in the US doesn't require money transmission license. I think when you talk about our own stablecoins though, and having actual rails where you do have to custody the asset within the rail or within the direct exchange of EMXN to EUSD or some other one, right? In that case, then you are taking full custody. So for any of the states, and I think there's 20, Tim's in the room, he could probably comment. I think there's 20 or 25 of them so far that have already added digital assets to their money transmission laws. That would mean that we have to disable. That's why I think it's right now you can't swap in the California in the Telcoin app. You can swap between EMXN and other EXYZs. You can't do that in probably 20 states, and that's the reason. Once a pool is set up on Uniswap, though, we can enable you to access that. So that can all 50 states could access that. So that's and there's a lot of internationally they're kind of behind on some of these things, but in Europe, the facilitation versus having to take full custody, that kind of legal nuances, it will gradually develop. So it's important for us to kind of bootstrap the EXYZ stablecoins out on the DeFi pools. So that's the main reason why we're doing it. I will also note, I don't know if Parker's on here, but he's been doing a lot of work communicating with Uniswap recently. And so, we are trying to make sure that, that they understand and work with them on two areas that I think we add something that others don't. One, the fact that we're coordinating all of these telecoms to have sort of real-time cross-chain capabilities. And secondly, because we're the issuer of stable coins, we can obviously facilitate sort of cross-chain stuff. So you can imagine that if we integrate at the kind of low level with Uniswap router or something like that, to be able to just instantly burn on one chain and mint on the other, that's pretty cool, right? So so I think getting some of these EXYZs into some Uniswap pools up front is important. So that's my very long explanation.
Oh, thank you for that, Paul. Appreciate that. And so you mentioned the other sort of three markets, the kind of key markets outside of the US and Mexico. So kind of launching this first pool to get some liquidity on board there, because that seems to be the priority corridor to launch for digital cash remittances. But out of like EU, India, and Kenya, how can we best like plan for that? And what do you think that might look like going forward? Like, as we sort of try to bootstrap liquidity in new pools, we've encountered that it takes a little bit of time where you have to propose it, there has to be an approval, and then we have to set it up through TELx, and Khalil's been doing some great work on TELx, but we know that there is a little bit of a time lag there. So in preparation, just for, to making sure that we're kind of staying ahead of the curve, if you will, what would you think about like the timeline for launching EU, India, Kenya, like pools on Uniswap ASAP, or you thinking 4 to 6 months down the road?
Yeah, I think for the US and for EUSD and euro, I think we want to really tightly coordinate so that we actually are able to set it up before it's publicly available, so that very quickly, maybe even on day one, we can turn it on, right? So those two are, I'd say, are special cases, and we'll tightly coordinate on that. For others, I mean, I think for ECFA, just with we have the ability to turn those kind of rails on. They're not account rails, but for West Africa, I think that would be interesting. And also in Kenya. Both of those we're not going to get, none of us is going to get rich on, but the Africa stuff really, is a great use case where we're helping a lot of people that in terms of, getting cooperation from telecoms, when you can show that you're really solving a problem in a place with, in a market where there's a lot of mobile money, in West Africa and in East Africa and Kenya. I think that'll be cool, but we're still let's get Mexico done. And I think maybe if you remind me in like a month, we'll try to get ahead, because Kenya is probably, we're going straight to an EMI in Kenya, which gives us the right, it's basically the same license that M-Pesa has. It will, gives us the right to issue local account numbers. So it probably doesn't make sense to do anything interim there. So we're still a couple months out. But maybe in the next month, if you remind me, we'll kind of try to put together a sort of timeline and process. We're still a couple months out. When we should initiate things. If you guys need 2 months on your side,
Yeah, that sounds good.
The other thing we'll probably want to do is start to do some additional chains. So everything's on Polygon right now. I think it kind of looks bad. We may want to follow up with like a main Ethereum mainnet, EMXN possibly, as just, so we at least demonstrate that we're starting to go to additional chains.
Sure.
Just with EMXN might make sense.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Anybody have any questions for Paul? I'm probably going to be respectful of your time. I know you're a real busy guy, so I don't want to keep you on the call for all the other stuff we have to discuss today, but I'd like to open up the opportunity for anybody who has a question for Paul or for Tim before we let him go about his business.
Yeah, I would just say too, that this opportunity with Uniswap is pretty cool, right? So I would definitely communicate with Parker on it, because if TELx can sort of get involved with real direct cooperation with Uniswap, I think that makes sense. Like we did more of that with Balancer before, right? But
yeah,
but with Telcoin network only works if, like, the idea of bootstrapping liquidity on Telcoin network is, I don't know if that's the best initial strategy, right? I think we need to really figure out the cross-chain stuff. So to the extent that like TELx can kind of get involved in some whatever cross-chain solution we're figuring out on the telco network side, and I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, we do have a question from the stream, which is regarding the UK regulatory issues, and where do you see things going in the UK?
So so we're doing actually our UK team leadership is in Lithuania right now. So because we're finalizing that application, the CASP upgrade of the VASP to a EU CASP in Lithuania. So they've been focused on that, and their plan had originally to then go and do UK next, but we're hearing that there's likely going to be a passport relationship between the US and the EU. So I think Telcoin Digital Asset Bank, I think, will be able to operate without necessarily even needing an independent UK license. Tim actually has done this passporting, I think, the other way, right? Between FCA and
Yeah. So when I created a multilateral transaction facility in the UK, and it needed access to the US market, I was able to work with the FCA and the CFTC in the US, which allowed the UK registration to backdoor into the US as a swaps execution facility. So what that does is it states that the FCA and US regulators deem each other as equivalents. And there, sometimes it does come down to the exact statute that is being seeking reciprocity, but there is the foundation there for that. And with both the US and the UK being very receptive to crypto going forward, yeah, we're expecting that to happen relatively quickly, that same avenue.
Right. And there's been public announcements even on the UK side that that's what they're planning. So that's kind of why we paused the application there, because we're pretty sure we won't need a standalone application. It's more like a passport registration or something like that. But that we do think that is something that we'll be able to move forward in the second half of this year.
Let's see.
Oh yeah, so the bank launch, yes, we're planning to submit at the end of July. So that means that by the end of July, we'll be able to show $22.6 million in the bank and show all of the different, customer agreements and all the different paperwork that we have to do to submit to fulfill the conditions of the charter. That's our target. We're hoping then by the end of July, or sorry, by the end of August, we receive the charter and then we can turn on operations. And by the end of September, that's our plan. We probably, there's a couple different steps to the rollout. We can most likely initially turn on where we're just wholesale minting for the Telcoin wallet, right? Or making them available. The second is turning on the actual bank account numbers in the US connected to for all US resident users of V5. So the V5 release will coincide with the launch of the bank, but the bank will actually launch first and we'll have USD available in V4. Then we turn on V5. Now you have US bank account numbers tied to the USD balance in the US at least. And then the third step is releasing basically the US bank, our version of like Circle Mints, right? The business bank account where we'll open it up to applications for business accounts. But from day one, though, we can start pitching to exchanges and other partners and blockchain partners for on them. But yeah, we initially are hoping that we can technically open the bank by the end of September.
Yeah, we all understand that timelines are difficult to predict, and we're not going to hold you to any of those timelines, right, guys? but yeah, appreciate that. Sort of
One thing to keep in mind too, but I know this is something that's come up with the community with Circle, a trust bank charter, like what Circle's getting, a trust bank charter is not a depository institution. So they can't take deposits from anybody, retail or consumers. In other words, it's not created in they have to work with a real bank to hold any deposits on behalf of customers. I mean, they've done that obviously because they just want to be a doorway and they want to stick with kind of wholesale stuff, with Coinbase being a retail offering, I presume. But turning on something where you're actually a full-fledged bank alongside a digital asset bank is something that's our goal, and there's a lot of nuances to threading that needle. But yeah, we're very excited about it. I think had we gotten to this step earlier, I'm not sure, we could have actually gotten through some of the steps that we're hoping for. In other words, I'm not sure if the Fed would approve a change of control request. This is getting into too much of the details, but there's certain things that we probably couldn't have done earlier than now, that prior to the Genius Act passing, which I'm pretty sure is going to come into law next week. So all this stuff is really coming down in amazing timing. But yeah, it feels frustrating that we weren't to certain steps or certain points earlier than we have been. So all this stuff is really than we are. But I think that the reality, I think in retrospect, is when we look back on this, is that a lot of things we wanted to do earlier probably wouldn't have been possible earlier. But we're trying our best to roll this out, obviously, as quickly as possible. But we've really committed to the fact that we don't see the point in doing a fiat native wallet, right, that holds a USD balance. We always wanted to wait until we could figure out the 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 holy grail, which I think is a regulated institution connected to Fedline that is stablecoin native or crypto native, not ever showing any customer a USD balance.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But that takes longer to get to, right? But we're almost there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, all the work that's gone on behind the scenes, we all really appreciate your efforts there. And Andrew's got something for you.
Yeah,
Andrew,
sorry, hey Paul. Thanks for joining. I just had a question. Like, I know Mike, we were kind of joking about on-off ramping and minting and burning of, like, say, EMXN. But like, is there a plan to kind of have something in place for that? For those who don't have access to, get EMXN on the app, whether or not they're in a different state or in a different country, like obviously in Canada, it doesn't work for me. But like, if we want to get that and be able to provide liquidity to the pool, is there a plan or a strategy to provide an on-ramp to EMXN or other XYZ currencies?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the way is just by the fact that, it's a cart before the horse problem, right? But obviously on DeFi, once we incentivize this, you'll be able to acquire it on the pool that we're incentivizing, right? In your MetaMask wallet or anything else. We'll get into exchanges and maybe lists with people like Transact or other rail providers pretty soon. I didn't really see the point of trying to do that until we first had our own rail fully set up, right? And then also incentivized and built up some liquidity on DeFi. Then we really pitched to list on other exchanges out there. But that's kind of the order, right? Is we bootstrap this, incentivize this initial DeFi liquidity in parallel to turning on our own rail to our wallet. As a first step. Second step is listing on some other kind of Transact type rail partners. And then third into kind of other centralized exchanges.
So would that process be similar for future coins, like different digital cash, or is that just because the EMXN one is kind of coming?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
no, I think that we, for the first few, we're taking it, but yeah, I think at some point then we list, like if we do a deal with, like, let's say listing with Transact as an example, right? Or one of those, I think we would do a batch versus just one at a time. And so yeah, I think the goal is to initially get the sort of end-to-end story done with EMXN, and then do it in more of a wave, right? So yeah, I do think that we'll start to, we'll try to get rails for the other ones even before we have a rail within our own app. But by doing that, by bootstrapping liquidity, yeah, and I don't think, we don't want to dilute TELx liquidity to those until we're really ready. But I think at that point when we could decide, and that's something to think about. What is there a few, Mike? Is there like a handful that we would like to go? Maybe not all 10 or 11 that we're doing at first, but maybe want to split that into 2 batches and try to do them in waves. We could consider that.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions for Paul? Well,
yeah, I see it. We've got 27 of 30 committed. That's questionably maybe only 25. So I consider in the back of my head that we got 5 more. But that should all be closed by the end of this month, of the committed stuff. So the large investors are just working through due diligence. The largest one is closing on the 31st. Another one on the 20th. So
let me jump in on that.
Yeah.
One is, these are all intentions and our best estimates, but nothing is guaranteed. And one of the reasons I wanted to say that to the group is this is really highly inside information. And so, we're not a publicly traded company, so we don't really have much concern there, but we do have the token floating around. I don't know how this might be considered inside. Yeah, our risk of the token being considered a security is very low now in the US. But I just want to just tell you that when you do ask these questions and you do get this inside sensitive information, one is remember it is confidential, and two, just be careful of relying on that and trying to make major investment moves.
Yeah, that's our attorney in the room. Yeah. SEC attorney.
Sorry to be the prominent.
Yeah.
No, but we're really happy with the state of the raise, and are confident it's not going to delay the bank opening at all. And then any final amount that we got to fill, I think is easy to do in the following month or so.
Sure.
After.
And if anybody, it's not a solicitation at all for an investment or anything like that, but
Yeah.
if you have any interest, anybody on the call can email invest@telco.in, and we'd be happy to follow up with you on that. All right. So, Paul, thank you very much for your time. It's good to see you again, cousin, and we'll be out on the river here in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. No,
Yeah.
happy to join again, especially when we get things rolling a little bit more with stable coins.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul. All right. Good call with Paul. Hope everybody got some good information out of that, and gives us kind of a guide as a council to sort of hear from the man himself, sort of what the future looks like, and allows us to sort of start thinking about how we want to help to support the system.
Well, I think that's a big wow from me, because having Tim and Paul on our call, I think that's a first, Mike, isn't it, for local councils, if not Platform and Treasury Council, having the key guys attend one of our meetings, and there was a lot of nuggets in there. It's huge.
Yeah.
Really excited. So yeah, if you're still listening, guys, Paul and Tim, thanks very much for joining.
Awesome. Okay. I don't know if Khalil is still on here. I saw him, he put a message into the chat. I know he's in the Khalil, if you're on the call, maybe step up and just give us a quick update on your end on where we're at with the TELx webs. I know you're in the middle of the night. We want to be respectful of your time as well. So
Hi everyone. Okay, so let me update you on the V4 integration. So I have did the first thing. The first thing is that I have get the data from subgraph for the Uniswap V4 pools. Let me share my screen that. Okay, so guys, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep, we can.
These two pools, I think, Mike, you give us to get some data from them, right?
that's correct. Yep.
Yep. So after that, I have successfully integrated to get all these, data sets and all the information from these pools. This is, I think, the Polygon, and we do have also the base. So on both chain, I have get the data. I was also working on the TELx, another thing. So guys, I have to switch to another branch.
Wow. It's a live coding thing going on right now. I don't understand it, but glad you do.
It's like watching a hacking movie.
Yeah.
So besides the V4 integration, we are also working on the multi-chain.
Oh, good.
So I hope this will show us new tools. Actually, I'm on the local host, so it's most of the time it works slow. Okay, so yeah, let me get that. Okay, so guys, this is the Uniswap pool, and I think this is the Polygon one. Um, yep. Yeah. So guys, you can see these stats. We have all these stats on this, pool detail page. So this one is a Polygon, and let me show you the base one. So this is the base uh, Uniswap V4 pool, and we managed to get all the information from the pools so far. And after that, we have another step, which is to get the stake information about the users, and then we can get the information about the rewards of the current user on the current pool. So I will be working on that step, and after that we will be just implementing the functions to claim the reward and get the unclaimed rewards on these Uniswap pools. So
Great.
that's all from my side.
Thank you so much for that update. Appreciate it. Looks really good.
Thanks.
I have a quick question, Khalil. Thanks.
Sure.
It looks great. Is it possible for us, or for me, I suppose, to have access, to have a look and feel, not modify, but just maybe a view access, just so we become familiar with it before launch, so that we can handle any questions. We've got a certain level of familiarity.
Sure. So for now, it's on my local, and we definitely will be going to deploy it on staging. So once most of the feature will be, done from our side, then we will definitely deploy it on a staging environment, and then you can review from your side and give us the feedback.
Great. Thanks, Khalil. Brilliant.
Thank you, guys. If you have any question, let me know.
Okay, thanks.
I just had one question, Khalil. Sorry, I'm driving,
Sure.
so I can't see the screen. But like in terms of the data and the statistics that you were able to pull from Uniswap, obviously like total pool liquidity is going to be there. But because these pools are going to be a little bit more unique, or they factor in concentrated liquidity, is there going to be a way to measure like the active liquidity, essentially like the total liquidity?
You're asking about the stake liquidity for the TEL tokens, right?
So like say like liquidity for a pool is $1 million.
Okay, let me
Well, I think
Necessarily.
total liquidity is represented as in range liquidity.
so, yeah, exactly. So actually we have fetched all the information, like total liquidity, volume for the 24 hours, fees for the 24 hours, and some other information as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Khalil. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Let's see. What else do we have? We had, I don't know if Amir's on here or not, but we had wanted to get maybe a hooks audit update. And I don't have that information. Anybody?
I was just going to say, I was emailing with Amir last we talked, I think it was yesterday. He had mentioned that the audit was, I think, concluding today, and that he was...
Okay. Okay.
Zoom in the next couple of days. We'll get an update from Amir, and then obviously by the time we have our next call, we should have a timing. We can kind of go live, but all agreed for
Okay.
the last meeting that once these pools are ready to go, we'll essentially fill the rewards on a pro rata basis to get us until the start of taking it, just start from fresh going forward.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, and then the next topic is TELx analytics, Andrew. But to be honest, you're cutting out pretty bad. So maybe we just postpone that one till next week, until the next meeting. So
Sounds
then the next agenda item then was like the user-friendly education piece, TELx website, written piece. I don't know who wants to take that one. I assume maybe as Tim, is that your topic?
Yeah, I mean, what I was saying before was I'm happy to try and develop what we've already had a go at doing with some written guidance and links and things, and try and form that into a set of words that we can put on the TELx website. But also, someone was going to have a chat with Ryan or Johnny or someone about maybe doing a couple of videos. My notes, I'm not sure who was going to do that. But maybe we should reach out to.
Yeah,
Tim,
don't know.
I can jump in there because I was a little bit involved with Andrew talking about that. So
Okay,
one of the comments or thoughts was of talking with Storm about assisting in producing one. Andrew and I have kind of talked a little bit offline about doing some stuff ourselves as well. Admittedly, anytime you do stuff like this, it is pretty time intensive. So it's been brought up to Storm about what that would look like in conjunction with the current marketing agreements that we're having them work with. So I think that was part of what Andrew had talked about. So I think that's kind of where we're at. Obviously, I think Andrew has shared, and I agree that the community agrees that there's definitely an education piece needed for teaching people that don't know much about adding liquidity how to make it easier, as it helps the ecosystem extremely. So that was kind of the goal.
Okay.
That's cool. So points of action going forward on that. Are we nominating someone or a subcommittee or something to maybe develop that further?
Yeah, my role is just in reviewing the education piece that's created for compliance and legal. So I wouldn't be the one generating it. And so as to who actually goes about and creates it, it maybe if I could just take a moment and Mike, if you don't mind, just discuss a structural thing that I want to make sure that we stay consistent with.
Okay.
And that is so the Telcoin Association is an association of individuals coming together and acting as a group like a corporate entity. And it has the installation, the limited liability of a corporate entity under Swiss law to just act as a group coming together. But then the association has created a constitution in which it dictates how the association acts. And then the association acts through its councils, this being one of the councils in which it acts. And the Constitution is structured such that these councils are the association becomes the governance of the overall organization, and the councils are like board of directors meetings. It comes up with the goals and the directions of what the association needs to do. But the actual implementation, so the councils are like enable the association to act as the brain of the organization. And then the arms and legs, the actual implementation is done through Telcoin Autonomous Ops, UAB, which is the TAO, we call it the TAO. And so there is a services agreement between Telcoin and the TAO. So anybody affiliated with Telcoin is then providing its services to the TAO to implement the association's objectives as determined by the councils. So when we get to something like this on, who's going to do the TELx website and the education piece for it, really what the council would come out of its meeting here today with, it would be a determination we need an education piece for the TELx website. And then the instruction would go to the TAO itself. Parker's the lead of the TAO, and say, implement this. Now, one of the things I want to take up with Leo and Parker is individuals not associated with Telcoin that are providing services and are coming together. What I think structurally we want to see is those individuals having an agreement with the TAO itself to provide those services, and it protects the individual that way too, and the overall organization. But I just bring it up because we're having these conversations about how to get things done, and I don't want to overlay a lot of impediments or overhead or that sort of thing. But I think we want to act in accordance with the Constitution and act in that manner, because in doing so, it not only helps the organization, but it helps each of the individual persons coming together so that everything is done properly, and therefore they're insulated from the liability that the Telcoin Association itself provides. So sorry to sort of go down a tangent, but I think so when we come out and the association says we need a piece, who does it? Then I think then the instruction should go to like Parker or the TAO and say, this is what we need. You go figure out how to do it. And then the TAO may contact one of the association members individually and say, hey, you're the best person to do that. And then that individual person would be doing it for the association, but doing it through the TAO and the agreement that person has individually with the TAO. So that's the organization concept. And again, if anybody has any questions and so forth, or has any input, please reach out to me. But I want to go, I'll be working with Leo and Parker, sort of trying to get that structure sort of in place. But let me know if you have.
Thanks, Tim, for that clarification. So basically on our minutes here, the notes for this meeting, there should be a statement on there saying that to go ahead, can we please contact the TAO to go ahead with the implementation of the education piece on the website, and to discuss or implement any videos that are going to be used. That will be our notes from the meeting that will become an instruction to the TAO to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. So the minutes, and if there's anything to follow in drafting minutes or notes of these meetings, it would be almost like board minutes, in that the board of directors meets, it says, hey, we want to engage an auditor. And so the board would say, hey, we approve you engage the auditor, and their minutes would instruct the officers of the company, the president, the CFO, go and engage the auditor. And then they would do it. The officers would do it. The TAO is like the association's officers.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you, Tim.
That's very helpful. Thanks, Tim.
Before we move on from that, I'm just curious, like, does that need to go through like a TELx IP to get the TAO to start looking at that kind of stuff, like formally? Because if there is a cost associated and all that kind of stuff to it, we have to put that towards our budget.
That's a good question. Legally, we wouldn't have to, but if budget has to be allocated to it, I think that's a question I'd like Parker's input on.
Yeah, I don't know if it's much of a legal thing. It's more just like a procedural kind of making sure that we're following the policies and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I would agree Parker is probably the best person to answer that question, but it just came up out of the top of my head of just, structurally, are we doing it the right way, going around it the right way? So I'm just maybe one of us can connect with Parker and just see what's the proper way to get that going.
Yep.
I think as a first approach as well, maybe one of the action points should be nominate a contact person within our council to liaise with the TAO, and then that's the feedback loop back to these meetings. And then if through the initial approach there's obviously going to be a cost involved, then at that point, that's when you raise a TELx IP, because I agree with Andrew, any cost involved needs to be discussed and voted on. But I think as a first approach, just having a contact person from the council whose responsibility is to follow up and chase the TAO, establish the communication, and then feedback to the meeting.
I think it's an excellent idea. And since Parker is the head of the TAO, it shouldn't be Parker. So it should be somebody other than me or Parker to be the council rep.
Yeah, it would be somebody from this council. We can decide who wants to take that torch. But yeah, that's a great idea. We just kind of run it up to the TAO. The TAO says, yes, we want to contract out this work to Tim, not Tim Mahota. Tim, sorry, I'm confusing my Tims. Or just say Derek, for example, and then Derek says, yeah, I do that, but here's the cost. And then we do a TELx IP to sort of propose the monetary units required to accomplish the work, and then that either gets approved or disapproved.
Yeah, it's very similar to what we're doing with the whole stream tel IP right now. So yeah, that I thank you, Tim, because I've wrestled around with that a little bit too, of understanding how that flow chart essentially of duties lies. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we have kind of run through the agenda items for today's meeting. We'll open it up to questions from council members or from the folks that are tuning in and listening in on the stream, etc.
Yeah, let me check the stream 1 second. I'll be right back with you.
Yeah, maybe for next time then, when Amir, I mentioned it in the chat to get the AIR proposal, the always in range, because I've still been playing around with the pools and using a tight range, and it often goes out of range. And then, especially with the TEL Ethereum pair, the Ethereum has shot up in relationship to TEL. So I've been out of range quite a lot. But I still think there's value in that proposal. So I don't want to lose sight of it, but I'm cognizant of the fact that there is a lot on at the moment. But I thought Amir would be on in the call and we could just maybe talk a little bit about the options. But again, we can maybe leave that to next time, or I can coordinate a call with Amir offline so that we can discuss these options with anybody else that's interested from the council.
Sounds good, Ty. I think the best course of action there would be just to have a quick sidebar with Amir, the two of you, to kind of discuss what you're kind of get the whole thing laid out in a concise fashion that we can understand a little bit better how it works. Course of action there would be just to have a quick sidebar with Amir, the two of you, to kind of discuss what you're
okay. I can always include the group email correspondence as well if anybody is interested in these discussions. I don't want to hog the call on that one. Okay.
That sounds good. Any other questions from the stream at all?
No, not right now. Just asked, haven't gotten anything else. So.
All right. Well, this thing has been a very productive call. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 23rd. And I think I know I'll be able to make it.
For the demo on desktop, we're using MetaMask.
Next meeting, the host is going to be Tim. Matt will be doing the agenda in advance of that meeting, and Andrew will be taking notes at the July 23rd meeting. If there's nothing else, then we can conclude this. I don't know what happens here with the recording now. I assume, is this meeting being recorded?
I can, yeah. So everything is now directly uploaded onto YouTube. So there's no more needing to record. There's no more, the stream goes live and saves the minute that we conclude it. Saves a bunch of steps for everybody. After this, what I will do is do a transcript. That is, I have an AI bot that generates that. I will give it to you guys to review before we post it as the meeting minutes / transcript. And then with that, I also timestamped the stream so that it's easy for finding information later on.
Okay. Sounds
So
good.
as host, am I doing anything operationally, or are we just using the same meeting?
Just in the same meeting. Sorry.
So Tim, that's me.
Oh, go ahead,
hosting
Tim.
next
Sorry.
time. That's me hosting next time, Tim, not you, Tim.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Don't worry about
You're
it.
welcome to join us, Tim.
Yeah.
Lots of Tims.
Yeah,
I
Tim,
have a
Tim
double-
Porter,
a
you are
double ganger.
off the hook, man. We appreciate you joining us, but you have no responsibility here other than to keep us out of the legal ditches.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Was Matt meant to be taking notes? I haven't seen Matt on the call this morning.
I've got them all, Ty. Everything is, I have a note taker that runs during these. It auto generates all the notes. I will give them to you guys to review and make any edits. Yeah, any edits that you want.
I'm here, but I talked to
cool.
Derek, and he's
Yep.
like, I got the notes transcribed, so I was like,
Yeah,
all right, I'll just listen.
I'm all about being efficient with our time, right? And if we can have something that does that for us, and then you guys review it and say this isn't right, this is, then we post it. That saves an hour of time for people. That's great. So why not?
Okay. All right.
Perfect.
Great.
Cool.
All right.
Right. I've got to shoot, guys. Thanks very much.
That concludes it. Have a great week, guys. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye. Hey everybody, my name's Grant Key. I'm the lead protocol engineer for Telcoin Network. I'll show you our digital cash demo. We've deployed several digital cash options on testnet. This is a Diri testnet. We have selected our EMXN peso, and you can see from a list of options, we've got a wallet with several balances, but today we're gonna swap for Canadian dollars. Set an amount, we'll do 2,000, and we can see the price impact the minimum amount received. We set our parameters for the swap, and now we're ready to sign. For the demo on desktop, we're using MetaMask. It's an open source EVM wallet. Telcoin Network is fully compatible with all the EVM products on the market. And once we've signed our transaction, it's now with the network. The nodes are reaching consensus, they're validating it, they're exchanging that information to make sure it's a legitimate transaction. And once that's reached on testnet, about 5 seconds, we should be able to see the information in the block explorer. So here we can see our status was successful. The block that the transaction was included in, 100,593. And we signed our transaction just 22 seconds ago. The power of Telcoin Network with the instant finality, every time a block is produced, the settlement is cleared, that transaction is permanent. And for very low transaction fees and very fast block times. Here you can have a look at our block explorer where we see blocks being produced in real time. This has a lot of information for us, including the token price, the latest block number, and the most recent transactions on the network. And there you have it. It's as easy as that. Users can swap stable tokens now on our Telcoin wallet found on iOS and Android.
We look at ourselves as the bridge between the traditional financial and the crypto world. So that's why we want to be the bank and issue stablecoin bank accounts directly out of your stablecoin.